I'm testing,
I'm rolling.
and you're testing. Hi, my name is Isabel Alkoff. I will be interviewing Sarah Meller on February 6th, 2024, and we are in Huntington Valley, PA.
Okay, and I am rolling.
Good morning. Could you please introduce yourself with your full name and date of birth?
Oh, sure. My name is Sarah Meller, and my maiden name was Danon, D-A-N-O-N, and I was born January 31st, 1931.
Okay. And where were you born?
Sorry, I made a mistake. January 6th, 1931.
That's great. And where
Yes.
were you born?
I was born in Split, Yugoslavia. Now it's Croatia. Then was Yugoslavia.
Can you describe your town? Do you remember anything about it?
About this Split?
Split?
Oh, yes. I remember everything. Yeah. I was there till I was 11 or so. And I remember everything vividly. We were a family of my mother and father and four siblings. And we had a nice, pleasant life. I remember being very happy child, playing with the neighbors, with the children, and everything was beautiful. But then in 1941, Hitler invaded Yugoslavia, and then when everything turned around.
Can you tell me, did you live in a house or an apartment?
We lived in an apartment. It was a large apartment, a 4-bedroom apartment. And it was, at that time, was pretty new. The house had 4 floors, 4 flights.
And you walked up and down the 4 flights?
No, we lived on the 2nd floor.
Okay.
But that's true. Other people walked up and down
Yes.
because there was no elevator.
Were you in a downtown section or out in the
No, we were in suburbs.
Okay.
It was a beautiful area. And there was fields and playgrounds, and it was very, very nice.
Did you go to a public or parochial school?
I went to a public school.
Okay.
And but I only finished 1st grade, and 2nd grade they threw me out because my 2nd grade Italians moved in already. They moved because they were allies. Hitler and Mussolini, they were allies. And when they invaded Yugoslavia in 1941, they divided. Mussolini took Croatia. That was the section where I lived.
Mm-hmm.
And Hitler took all the big cities, Belgrade, Zagreb, Sarajevo, all the big cities. He liked that.
Yeah.
So he took that over. And we lived with the Italians.
Before we go on, in your home, can you tell me your parents' names, please?
Oh, yes. My mom's name was Hannah. She passed away. And my dad's name was Joseph.
Okay. And your siblings, please?
Blanca's the oldest, Isaac, Esther, and I.
Okay. All right. And so you said that you were invaded, the Italians took over, you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
They occupied the area.
Before they came, did you experience any anti-Semitism?
Not really. In Split, there was only 200 Jewish families. And we had one synagogue, that's all. And on the block where I lived, we were the only Jewish family. And they were very nice to us. And the children, I played with the children. My best friend was Jagoda and Maria, I still remember. And we were like sisters. And from morning to night, we were together. And they were very, very nice. I did not experience any anti-Semitism.
Okay. And in the summer times, during vacations, did you travel, or what did you do during vacation?
Well, well, my parents were busy people. They had a business, a store, a yard goods store, and they couldn't close the store. But my father would take off like a week or so because my grandparents lived in Bosnia and in the suburb of Sarajevo. And my father would take each summer one kid. 1 year I went, 1 year my older sister. He wanted the grandparents to see us. So that's what he did. And otherwise we didn't travel, just to Bosnia.
Okay. Was your family religious, observant?
Yes, we were observant. We kept kashrut. We were very observant.
So there was a kosher butcher?
No, there was no kosher butcher in Split for 200 people. They in the regular butcher store, the rabbi would come and they would slaughter a cow only one time a week on a Wednesday. And the rabbi, it would have to be the front part, not the back part. It's not kosher, the back part. The half of the cow, the front part. And the rabbi would check that there wasn't any sickness or anything in the animal, you know, and then he would mark it kosher. And all the Jewish families would come on Wednesday and buy meat for the rest of the week, whatever they could.
Did your mother make a traditional Shabbat dinner?
Oh, yes, very much so. It was always very festive, very exciting. My mother would, did her, come on, hurry up, get ready, because Shabbat is almost here. And we would get dressed up nice, and we would have a Shabbat dinner, and candles, and wine, and challah, and we would sing songs afterwards. Before dinner, my parents would bless the children. They would put their hands.
That's lovely. Okay. And did your family own a car?
No.
Okay.
No car.
So when you
one,
went to...
One car was owned on a whole block by one family. No, we had no cars. Okay. No.
When you went to visit your grandparents, how did you go?
Oh, by ship. We would go because Split is 3 ways Adriatic Sea and one side mountains. It's a beautiful resort city. Split is a resort city.
Okay. So when the Italians took over your section in Split, what changes happened?
Well, right in the beginning, I went to school, and the second day, they already changed. They put Italian teachers because they wanted the kids to learn Italian. You know, when they take over, they occupied the city and the area, and they wanted everything to become Italian. So all the things were written in Italian, the newspapers changed to Italian, the teachers in school became Italian, they brought teachers, Italian teachers, and I went to school, and the second day or third day of my second year, the teacher called me up to come to the desk. Sarah Dannon, come up here. I came. She said, you have to go home and don't ever come back again. She told me. I couldn't believe it. I was so stressed and embarrassed in front of all the kids. And I went and I told my mom, the teacher told me I shouldn't come back. And then we found out that the high schools and the other school did the same. So that was the first bad thing that happened. We couldn't go to school. And then there were other things that they would post, they would put the signs like a poster, Jewish people not allowed in the theaters, or things like that. Or Jewish people could shop only after 3 o'clock. Well, the other people, during the wartime, everything was scarce, and there was rationing, and people would buy out everything. By the time the Jewish people got to buy, mostly nothing was left. But my father was a very good provider, and he had a store, a yard goods store, and the people from the farms used to come buy white linen and to make sheets and pillowcases. They would make their own, and to burlap and all kinds of things. And my father would say, "Don't give me money. What do you have? Merchandise? Do you have wheat? Do you have corn? Do you have rice? So my father, we were not hungry because my father got food like that. He would buy potatoes. He would get a big sack of potatoes. We would have for 2-3 months potatoes, because this is during the war. It was wartime. And so that first year, we were not hungry. But other people, they weren't hungry, but they weren't full either. They only, everybody had a portion of bread this big for the day. So if you were a family, we were 6, we would get half a loaf. They had a loaf like this, like rye bread. And then we would get, that's all you're allowed to buy. So that's how it was. But that was for everybody the same, rationing. But for the Jewish people, the Italians, they were not so bad. They were not killing Jewish people like Hitler. And we lived under the Italians till 1943, like a couple of years, till they surrendered to the Allies.
Were you able to stay in your apartment?
We stayed in our apartment until the war started turning over, and Americans and British liberated Sicily and went into Italy. And they were there. That was already 1943. And the war started April 1941 in Yugoslavia. Hitler started the war in 1939, invaded Poland, and a few other countries there. But Yugoslavia, it started in 1941, April the 15th of 1941.
When the Italians came into Split, where did they live? I assume that all the buildings were already occupied by families.
Well, they took the hotels, the soldiers. They made tents and they found places where to stay. But the bigger, a general, they would go in the hotels, or they would rent rooms. They would make people rent them a room, if people liked it or not. They would say, you have 4 rooms. You rent me one room. You squeeze in the other 3. Like that. And so that's what they did. And for about 2 years during the Italian occupation, a lot of Jewish people were saved because they came from Bosnia, from Sarajevo, from Belgrade, from Zagreb. But if they could get false papers, they couldn't. And not only that, as soon as Hitler came to those cities, right away he wanted all the Jewish people to sign up. He had to know where the Jewish people are, and right away everybody should report and everything. But some people who were daring and didn't report right away, and they were able to get some false identification, they came. There was a lot of Muslims living in Sarajevo, and they had that garb, that they put on their head, and they had like this, that covering. So some Jewish people got saved that way. They paid them money. They gave them their identification and their outfit, and they wore that thing, and they came to split. So quite a lot of, no, I mean, many died, but maybe 5,000, let's say, came to split. And they, we took in a family. Everybody, we took a family with a child, and we squeezed in, and gave them a room. They slept, they stayed with us maybe for 6-8 months.
Do you remember their names?
Montillo. The name was last name Montillo, and her name was, the daughter's name was Sharika. That was the same like my name, Sarah, but they made it Sharika, like. And the mother's name, oh yes, Simha. Simha, which means in Hebrew, happiness.
Yeah.
Simha. That was her name. I remember now. Yeah. And
So they stayed, how long did they stay with you?
maybe about 10 months or something. And they found another place. They went to a little town someplace. They tried to save themselves, But they stayed with us. We gave
And what
them.
happened? You were saying that in Bosnia, a lot of people were deported to the camps. What happened with your grandparents?
They were all taken to right away. Maybe as soon as Hitler came to Bosnia, maybe in the next month or two, all the Jewish people. I had all my father's family in Bosnia, and there were 64 members of my family that were killed in Auschwitz. They were taken by Germans, and they were burned in Auschwitz. My father has 7 brothers, married, and each had 2 or 3 children. They were all taken, killed, 64. And my grandparents, my grandmom and grandpa, all of them. And I didn't know, and my father got a letter from somebody, and he was reading, and I never saw my father cry. He was crying, and I said to him, "Why are you crying, Dad? What's the matter?" I was so surprised. And he said, "I'll tell you when you get older." He didn't want to tell me what was happening, but that he got a letter that his whole family was taken. Entire family. Yeah, that was very sad.
Can you tell me your grandparents' names?
What?
Can you
My
tell me
grandparents' name, Blanca, and I guess Blanca is translated Blanche in English, but her name was Blanca, and he was Isaac. Yeah.
Dannon?
Dannon.
Thank you.
D-A-N-O-N.
Thank
Dannon.
you.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you have another family living with you. Conditions, your father still open, still able to keep his business?
Yes. We
And-
kept the business until the Italians surrendered in 1943. And then, well, if you want me to go on or tell
Yes.
you more about before the 1943.
You can tell me before 1943, anything you remember.
Well, I remember that this happened. My brother was 13, and his bar mitzvah was that 1 week, like a year after Italians came, occupied, split. And it was Friday afternoon, like 7, 8 o'clock. It was summertime. And Shabbat, Saturday, doesn't start till, like 8 o'clock or something. So my brother, he said, well, since he was bar mitzvah last week before, and he said, I should really, let's go and pick up our father before he closes the store, and we'll go together to services, to Friday night services. So I said, sure, that's a good idea. So he and I, we got dressed nice, and we walked to the city to where my father had his business. Well, you know, we didn't have a car. The buses were running, but very frequently, like once in 2 hours or something. We walked, half-hour walk. We walked to the center city, and we came to my father, and he was busy with a customer. She couldn't make up her mind. She kept him going, and we waited, and I said, listen, the services start 8 o'clock, and here it was already like 10 after or so, quarter after, and my father couldn't chase her away. She wants this, she wants that, and finally she finished, and my father closed the business, and we started walking. Our synagogue wasn't too far from my father's business. And you have to go through small little streets, and then you come to a big courtyard, like a piazza. And all around the piazza, there's boutiques and stores and restaurants. And people always going and coming, and people sitting outside sipping coffee or drinking beer or whatever. And as we came there, it was all different. We entered into the piazza from this street, back street, and we see a big commotion, a big fire burning. These guys in the black shirts, they're banging with the bayonets, hitting people, knocking them down, and throwing books and burning everything. And we backed away right away. And we went through the back streets back to our house. And the next day, we talked to a rabbi and a few people, you know, that knew what was going on. And they told us that these were black shirts. You know, they were the fascists. Italy had two kinds of soldiers. That El Re, the king, he was the one that, but he was just a figurehead. But Mussolini, the fascist, he was the head. He was leading everything. So these were fascists. They were the soldiers of Mussolini, and they wanted to do some damage to Jewish people to show Hitler that they are with him. So they came on a boat, and first thing they asked people, where are the Jewish people here? And is there a synagogue? And people told them, and they went to the synagogue, and they came to the rabbi, and they said, Rabbi, the synagogue, the services are over. Everybody out. And tell the people that should go out. And the people, you know, a lot of older people come, you know, to the services. They couldn't walk so fast. But this was like up the steps, one flight, and then another flight. And the people couldn't walk down so fast. So they were pushing them down, knocking them down if they couldn't walk fast enough, and kicking them and hitting them with the bayonets. And everybody went in front there, and they started bringing all the Torahs and the holy books and everything. They made a big bonfire, and they burned everything, the whole thing. But meantime, we went away, you know. Right. We were lucky because the customer saved us. It was God's will that the customer kept my father, and we were late to the services. Okay. So we found out that's what it was. But fortunately, these bad guys that came and did all that, they went back to Italy the next day. They just came there to do damage. And that was one bad experience. And, you know, we were worried and scared. Of course, the children, I mean, I wasn't so worried, but my parents were. And I mean, they knew what was going on, but I still played outside as nothing happened, and running in the field. I was a little tomboy with my friends. And then Italians surrendered in 1943. They surrendered to the Allies. And the Germans were furious. Any place there was Italian soldiers, they were killing them without asking any questions. They were like going around looking for Italians like mad dogs. They were killing them left and right. And a week after the Italians surrendered, one night we're sleeping like 3 o'clock in the morning. My neighbors came banging on our door. Mr. Dannon, Mr. Dannon. And we all woke up, we jumped out of bed, we came out, and we saw a lot of people congregating, the neighbors in the middle of the street. And they told us, Mr. Dannon, the Germans are on the border of the city. They're coming in the city. And by that time, you see, this was already 2 years into the war, into the occupation. Mm-hmm. They knew that the Germans are taking Jewish people, but they didn't know they were killing them. They knew that they were taking them to the concentration camps. They thought for labor, And so nobody wanted to go even to the concentration camp just to, work. So they were running away. Even the non-Jewish men, they were going to the mountains. And they're going to fight the Germans when they come in. Mm-hmm. But they had no guns or anything, But they ran. They didn't want to be occupied. They don't know what the Germans will do when they come in. They kill people. Who knows what they'll do. So all the men went to the mountains, to the partisans. Because at the beginning of the war, right away, they started organizing against Germany. The people organized. The men went in the mountains like soldiers.
Were these men from Split or from all over Croatia?
From all over Croatia. Okay. From Split, from Croatia, yeah. So the people that hated Nazism, they went to the mountains. The other people didn't. Not everybody went. There were people that were collaborating with Germans and Italians. There were collaborators, and there were good people that wanted to go and fight them. And so my father and my brother, who was 14 years old at the time, 14 and a half maybe. So he and my father went, and I said to my father, please take me also. I want to go too. I want to go. My father said to me, child, please stay home with your mother and your sister. And the Germans won't harm women and children. You'll be safe. You stay with your mom. Also, my sister, my older sister, Blanca, she was 16 and a half, and she went to the partisans. And she became a fighter, a soldier.
She went with your father?
She went with another group. She went with the women fighters. And my father went. And she also was wounded in the leg. Yeah, my sister was wounded. And so they went, and my mom and I remained, and my sister, who was like maybe 6 and a half, I don't know, she was at the time. And so the Germans came in, and right away they occupied everything. They went to the city hall. They took everything over. They look at the records, everything. And right away, the general, the lieutenants, they all find, as soon as they come, they pick up women and they say they're going to stay with them. They had to do it. That's how they were. So on my block, there was a beautiful young woman. She was so pretty. She was single. And the next day, the lieutenant is staying with her, living with her. She couldn't help it. But she told me that she heard from him that in a month from now, there won't be another Jew in Split. They're all going to be taken away. So I went home and I told my mom. I said, Mom, we have to go someplace. We have to run away. And my mom said, my child, we have no place to go. Nobody wants us. Where can we go? There's no place to go. We just have to stay where we are. And I kept begging my mom every day, we could go somewhere. Let's just go this way, that way. No. Meantime, the bombs are falling because the Americans and the British are bombing the Germans that came in with all the equipment and tanks and, oh my God, so much stuff that came in like, I don't know what. And so the bombs are falling down. We have to run in the shelter. After that, we don't know if the Germans are coming during the night, knocking on our doors to take us to concentration camp. I used to practice. We lived in this very nice apartment that you walked in the foyer, and then this hallway, and on both sides of the hallway is bedrooms and the rooms, and the end of the hallway is another room that ended the building. So we were on the second floor, so I would go in that room and practice jumping down in case Germans would come on the front door. I would jump down and go through the back fences, back lawns, and run away. And I was a tomboy. I said to myself, I'm not going to let the Germans get me, you know. Anyhow, then, you see, it was already like almost 3 years into the war, and we already knew a little bit, and we were scared of the Germans. When they first came in, the people in Belgrade and Zagreb and all those cities that they came in, they didn't know. They had no idea that the Germans would do that, what they're doing. Even when they went they collected them, they thought they were going to work. They didn't know they're going to be gassed. They're going to be killed. Anyhow, then I was running. I was a caretaker of my sister. I kept her with her. I kept running to the shelter, coming back, and wherever I go, she was glued. I kept her because my mom was a little bit already, you know. The husband went away, the children went away, and the war, the Germans came in. She was depressed, you know, and she was. So I was like a mother to my sister, you know. And I said to my mom one day, this all took place within 2 weeks, since the lady told me that Lieutenant said that they'll collect all the Jews within a month. By the second week, I said to my mom, you know, Mom, you remember the milk lady that used to deliver the milk to us? She told me she liked me a lot. She told me, I like you. You're such a nice girl. Come to visit. Come to stay on a farm with me. Maybe she'll take us in. I said, why don't we go there? Oh, my mom said, don't even think about it. She's not going to do it. She just told you that. She's not going to do it. She would be too scared to take us, you know. Well, I kept begging my mom. Another day is getting, you know. I said to my mom, Mom, if you're not going, I'm going to take Esther, and I'll go myself with her. And my mom, she thought it was a joke, you know. She wasn't believing me. So I had a little knapsack, and my mentality, I need a blanket in case I get tired walking and I have to lay down on the grass or something. I took 2 extra pair of shoes for my sister and me, put it in knapsack. I took 2 sweaters in case we get chilly because it was like summertime. And we were in a little dress, that's all. In those days, nobody wore pants. We didn't have pants. And I put 2 sweaters, 2 pairs of shoes, and a blanket in the knapsack. And I put it on my back, and I took my sister by the hand, and I said, Mom, I'm leaving, and I'm taking Esther with me. And I started walking across the street. There was fields. And when you go through those fields, then you come to the main highway. And I'm going halfway through the fields, and my mom is in the window because the back bedroom, was facing the street there. Like the rooms were here, and then this way, and here was a window. And my mom is calling, Sarah, Sarah, wait, I'll come. So my mom, just the way she was, in her little dress, summer dress, she closed the store, and she closed the door, and she came. We waited. Well, the matter is, I would have not gone. I was just testing my mother. But I would have never left my mom because I loved my mom very much. And so, but it worked. So my mom came, and we walked the whole day. We walked and walked, and we came to the farm, to the mountains, and we asked some people where this lady lives, and they told us, and we went in, and she said, yes, you could stay with us. She took us in, and she gave us a little room like a closet, the size of a single mattress. She put it like this on the floor, and we lay there like sardines, And that little room had a little window with shutters, wooden shutters. She closed the shutters, she closed the window, and she said to us, do not talk, don't say a word. If you have to say something to each other, just whisper in your ear. And we stayed in that room for 6 months. And, well, there were things, she was very nice to me, I must say. At night, when it was dark, she would say to me, would you like to come in the kitchen? So only I, nobody else. She took a liking to me. She liked me. She took me to the kitchen, and, of course, everything was closed. It was a little house. Every window had wooden shutters. And so she took me to the kitchen, and she was teaching me how to knit. And I was knitting scarves and little socks and little gloves. And she taught me how to do it. And when it was over, I would give it to her, not for me, But I don't know what she did with it. But I was a fast learner, and I was knitting because that kept me busy, That was wonderful. And during the day, I was knitting, and she was very, very nice woman. And
Do you remember her name?
You know something? I don't remember her name, unfortunately. But she was an older woman. She must be dead many years already.
Mm-hmm.
And anyhow, after 6 months, one morning she came and she said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry, but I cannot keep you anymore. You have to leave because I'm too scared. The Nazis are snooping around. They're all over the place, and I am scared, and you'll just have to leave. Well, we have no place to go, but what can we do? Listen. So we said, okay, the next day we have to leave. But she felt bad about it, and she came the next day to us, and she said, listen, I have an idea for you. I have a cousin that lives on an island. Yugoslavia, Split, has a lot of little islands around Split because the Adriatic Sea is there, and all little islands. I don't know how many, maybe 20 islands. And she said, my cousin lives on an island, and maybe there is safer. Maybe she'll take you. During the night, the next night, my husband will take you there and see if she'll take you. And he did so. When it was good and dark, you know, we do everything in the dark. Nobody should see us. He took us, and the cousin said, all right. So she kept us also for about 3 months.
How did he take you? Did he have a car or did
No.
a
It's
wagon?
a lot of walking and then a little boat, rowboat.
Okay.
No. Nobody had cars then. This was 1941. There were cars and buses in the city, but people were not well off to buy a car. Cars are very expensive. Oh, no. No cars. One in maybe 10,000 had a car. Yeah, they had to be making good money to have a car.
Do you remember the name of the island?
These. V-I-S. These. Okay. Anyhow, so the lady took us in, the cousin, and we stayed there, and she was nice. 3 months later, she told us that she's scared too. And she said, we're so scared, you'll have to leave. We cannot keep you anymore. And listen, we were, what can you do? You know, we would go in the street. I mean, we didn't know what to do. And the next day she came and she said, you know what? My husband will take you to the mountains, to the partisans. They will help you. And so it was. The next dark, very dark night when there was no moon, he took us to the mountains. It was an ordeal, climbing up mountains, because there was no road, nothing, just rocks. And he could, even if there was a road, he wouldn't be able to do it because the Germans would see us. But they go through back way somehow, and we're climbing the rocks, and we were all bloody legs and everything scratched, and my sister, my poor little sister, I was holding her for my life, pulling her and holding her, trying, make sure that she survives. And it took us 3.5 hours or more till we came up to the top of the mountain, and there were partisans there hiding. They were all hiding. And so they say, okay, you could be with us, So we were with them. And, of course, the man went back home. And we were with the partisans maybe good 3-4 months. And every night they walk in one line. And there's a leader with a rifle, a partisan, and the rest of the people one by one walk in the back. And in the back of the line would be another partisan with a rifle. And it was walking in the dark. No, you go through rocks, through terrible terrain, and it was very, very, very bad. And we walked the whole night, and when 4 o'clock, 4:30, we would stop before it get dawn, before it would light up. And there was hard times there in the mountains. Many times there was rain, there was no shelter. The blanket came in handy. I would put between 2 huge rocks. I would put the blanket. We would go under the blanket, and the rain would saturate, would start dripping, take off the blanket, squeeze the water, and put it back on. And it was hard. No food. The partisans had a little bit of flour. They would make a little fire and some water and mix the flour, put the flour in the water, mix it up, and that was like a meal, a soup, whatever you call it. And we're lucky to have that. And There were times when they didn't, they would run out of that. And we walked and walked, and one time we didn't have anything. They were out of food. We didn't have anything to eat or drink. And a partisan saw a little house down the mountain. He went, there was a farmhouse. So he got he came back with a piece of pork, like this thick, white, just white. I don't know what you call that. White, no, there's no meat on it, just a fat. This thick and this big. And he had a little knife, sharp knife, and he was cutting slices, and every person got 1 inch, like a square inch of this pork. And when they gave to my mom, she said, I'll die first. I wouldn't put this in my mouth. You know, Jewish people don't eat pork. And then I said, I won't eat mine either. Oh, she said, yes, you will. You eat that, and you're going to eat my portion. So she made me eat 2 portions of pork because she said it'll give you strength, you know. So I ate that, and my sister ate her portion. But anyhow, we walked and walked on for months. Maybe we were walking 3-4 months. And then finally, oh yeah, one time, it was a terrible thing that happened. My mom, she had no strength. She was a wonderful walker because she walked to the business 4 times a day. You know, she would go from our house to Center City and back. And then again, 1 o'clock, they would fiesta. They closed the store till 4 o'clock. She would go back and forth 4 times. She was a wonderful walker. But this was too much for her, walking in the mountains with partisans. It was a terrible, terrible ordeal. And she became so worn out and washed out and depressed, and she had no strength. She just fell. One night we were walking, she just fell down, and she said, just let me die. Promise me you're going to save yourself and your sister. And I begged my mom, please, please, please try a little bit. Try, you know, get some strength. Try, pick yourself up. No, I'm done. I just want to die. And she just, that was the worst day of my life. And she kept insisting, you go and save yourself and save your sister and let me die. And she wouldn't budge. And the partisans, they don't have time for a woman there, you know. They just kept going. And you had to follow them because, you know, time was very urgent because before dawn you have to stop and hide. As soon as it gets light, we all have to find hiding places and hide. So we left, and I was so upset, and I was praying for my mom. And then the next day, after we walked that night, and we were hiding the whole day, and the next night, when we started walking again, a partisan comes with my mom. Oh, my God, I was so happy. Oh, my God. And that was the happiest day of my life. Oh, my God, I couldn't believe it. And she got a little strength, and he helped her, and he was holding on to her, and he brought her back. And so that was a lucky thing. And we walked and walked like always the same thing. At night, we walk. During the day, we hide. And finally, we came to the end of the mountains, and there was no food, no ammunition. Partisans had nothing. And they started signaling to the British and Americans across the Adriatic in Italy. We are neighbors. Italy and Croatia is across the Adriatic Sea. So they were signaling to them, and they told them that they have women and children, and everybody's starving, and there's no ammunition. They have no ammunition. They have nothing. So the Americans signaled back, we're going to help you. We're going to send you ammunition, and we're going to send you food. The next day, we have parachutes for coming down. A lot of food and ammunition and everything. So that was a lucky thing. And then we were there for a couple of weeks. The next best thing that they signaled the Americans, we're going to send a ship for you, and we're going to take the women and children and bring them here for safety. So we were going, do you know, it was such an ordeal going down those mountains to come to the bottom, to the water. It would take 3 hours every night. And then we had to go back, climb up on our hands and feet, climb up to hide during the day. The ship didn't come. We went like that up and down about 6 nights. And the ship didn't show up. And then finally, one night we come down, and there's a ship in the middle, a battleship in the middle of the ocean. Not ocean, the Adriatic Sea. And now the point is, they cannot come to the shore. It's a big battleship. They're in the middle of the Adriatic Sea there. And the partisans, they had hidden a rowboat behind the rocks, big rocks. A rowboat that could hold maybe like 15 people. And we were a big group of people there. And who's going to get in there first? So my mom said to the leader, the one that was with the rifle, if you could put me and my 2 kids in this rowboat first, I'll give you everything I have. And he agreed. I don't know what my mom gave him. I don't know what she had. Money, jewelry, I don't know what she had. But my mom said, take off your sweater, take off your shoes. My sister, everybody, give him. We gave him everything we had on. I gave him my knapsack with the blanket, with everything. And I don't know what else my mom gave him. Look, I was a child, I didn't ask. But I heard my mom said to him, I'll give you everything I have. So I don't know what she had. But he put us on the boat first. And then the rest of the people, not everybody could go. Only so many people went. And the partisans were rowing very fast to the battleship. And there was some shooting at us. The Germans saw that there was some movement there, but they didn't get us. And we came to the ship, and the British, it was a British battleship, and they threw down the ropes, and we climbed up. They helped us. We had to climb up the ropes because we were on a little rowboat, and the battleship was so tall high. And so when they pulled me up, I was strong. I was holding good. When they pulled me up and I put my feet on that battleship, I said, thank you, dear God. I am saved, And then my sister, they pulled my sister. And, well, the partisans were helping, the ones that couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And the soldiers from the ship and the partisans were pulling them up, and the other ones were pulling them up. And everybody made it. And they were very nice. They wanted to give us all kinds of food right away, candy, chocolate, bananas. My mom said to me, don't take anything because your stomach shrunk, you might get sick. So I only accepted 1 banana, I remember. And they took us to Italy. And when we came to Italy, they took us to a camp, a dispersed people's camp. And the first day, of course, we didn't see any people. They took us in a big room. They fumigated our clothes. They washed our clothes. They were shaving. Oh, my God. Everybody, the women got their heads shaved like boys. And I don't know what, me and my sister were so lucky. They let us go. They didn't shave our hair. I'll never forget that. I was so happy because I was so scared. Oh, my God, they're going to shave me, because people had lice and all kind of. Look, we were in our clothes for maybe a year in the same dress, in the same clothes. No water for drinking, let alone to take a shower or something. And it was terrible. So what they did, they washed our clothes and they gave it back to us. And so the next day, we went walking outside, and somebody recognized my mom and told her that they saw her brother in the camp there. And then we started asking the authority, there where he is, and we found him. And then he tells us that my father and my brother are in the next town that's called Lecce. We were in Bari, Italy, and this little town was called Lecce. It was like an hour away. And we were so happy. And then the authorities, they notified my father, and he came with my brother, and we were united, and that was so wonderful. And the reason my father was in Lecce, because my father worked for the American Census Bureau. He knew languages, and they needed people to translate and to read certain letters or certain, whatever they needed. So my father was a good person for that, and they were either paying him. I don't know if he was volunteering or they were paying. I'm not sure, but anyhow, so he was doing that, and so my father said to us, we were so happy, we were united, everybody except my older sister Blanca, and my father said, what a lucky break that you happen to come now, because in 2 weeks we're going to United States. And we were so surprised. So my father went to the authorities and said to them, my wife and my 2 children just came, and we're supposed to go to United States. Can they come in the group? And they, of course, said yes. And what happened, President Roosevelt, in 1944, because he did not do anything to help the refugees or the Jewish people, or when the ship came from Germany with 1,200 Jewish people that they were trying to save themselves, President Roosevelt didn't allow them to come in. Nobody allowed them. And they had to go back to Europe and be killed by Nazis. But he decided, it's almost the war is turning around. He decided that he wanted to do one little thing to show the world that he did something. So he invited 1,000 refugees to come to the United States as a haven until the end of the war. At the end of the war, before we entered the United States, we had to sign that the day the war ends, we have to go back. We had to go back. We only came as a haven. And so it was, oh my God, there was so much excitement. We're going to the United States, And they only wanted to invite 1,000, and there were thousands of people that wanted to come, refugees. But 1,000, that's all. And they didn't even bring 1,000. President Roosevelt said 1,000, and they only brought 890 or something like that. I don't know why. Because they were investigating every person. They didn't want to just bring anybody. And so so we came to the United States. We boarded a ship, I think in Naples, and a convoy of ships. We were like 14 ships, 3 destroyers in the front, 3 destroyers in the back. There were army ship. There was a ship full of German soldiers. The ones that I caught, what do you call them?
Prisoners of war.
Prisoners of war. One big ship full of prisoners of war. One ship of American wounded soldiers. This other ship that we were on, a big ship, we were a half a ship, 1,000 people in a half a ship. And the other half was another group of American wounded soldiers. And there were other ships. And we were going in a rotation like this. 3 ships, then more ships, then in the back, the battleships. And it was wartime, 1944. This was 1944. And it was very dangerous. And it was a hard trip because we had German planes over us. They had to put smokes, what do you call it?
Smoke screen?
Screen, yeah, smoke screens. And we had to go downstairs under, and everybody was choking and fainting. It was, the smoke was terrible. And that was one thing. Another thing, there was, the ship stopped still because they thought that there was, what do you call them?
Mines.
Mines and stuff like that. And they didn't go straight like normal. They went around and around. It took us a long time to come to the United States. I think about 3 weeks or more. And anyhow, well, I was excited on the ship. I didn't care, nothing. I was a kid and everything was great for me. I was happy. I was helping other people. There were people that couldn't get up, couldn't eat. And I was like doing mitzvot, I was getting them food. There were a couple of ladies, they had one blouse and was all messed up because was rough ocean. And people were throwing up and they had no strength. It was hard because we had those bunks, one on top of the other. It wasn't luxury travel. It was a very hard travel. And so I was helping these people. And I remember this lady, she blessed me. She took off her blouse and I washed it for her. And I hung it up and then I gave it to her when it dried up. She had a clean blouse to wear because the food, everything was going all over her and she couldn't get up. She was just laying on that bunk. Was one bunk on top of, see, it was like an army ship, and it was, and so after all that, we came to, on the ship, people, it was a nice group of people, these people, mostly Jewish people, but there was like about 50 non-Jewish people. And they were performers. They decided they wanted to make a show. And they made a show, and they showed to the wounded soldiers. They entertained them. And there was an opera singer. One guy was an opera singer. There was a pianist. There were a couple of pianists. There were different people that performed. And, they tried to pass time like that. And, of course, it was danger. I mean, we were on the ocean, wartime, and everything. But, look, you had to pass time, And I met right away 2 girls, and I became very good friends with my two girlfriends there. And then when we came to the United States, and the whole time we were friends. But anyhow, then we came to the United States, to New York, and We were very excited. First thing we saw was the Statue of Liberty. We all said prayers and thank God for, making us come safe to the United States and bringing us there and experience this wonderful country, and we saw the Statue of Liberty, and it was amazing, and we were so happy. And we stayed overnight. The next night, they had trains right near the ship. They had trains. We went into the trains, and they took us to Oswego, New York, to Camp Ontario. And they had that was an army camp, and they had barracks there, and they made barracks like according to the families. They divided the barracks. When it was army camp, it was all one. A barrack was all one space, but they divided it in sections. If you were 5 people, a family, they made a section for you inside the camp, in the barrack, and so you had like a place to socialize, and you had a couple of bedrooms. They divided it. They put like what do you call that? Like the sheet wood, what do you call it?
Get some privacy.
Yeah, for privacy. But anyhow, I was happy. I loved every minute of it. I enjoyed everything. I was happy to be in the United States. I loved the United States. I said, my God, why wasn't I born here? I missed all the 13 years. I was 13 when I came. And I loved everything. I was just overjoyed, happy. And other people, they had complaints. And there's a fence. The fence didn't bother me. There's a fence around the camp. What did we come to? Another camp, and a lot of complainers, and not me. I loved everything. For 1 month, we were supposed to stay in the camp. A month later, they allow us to go to public schools. We went to public schools. I loved public schools.
I'm rolling again.
Okay. All right. Can you tell us how long you stayed at Lake Ontario or Camp Ontario?
Oh, in Camp Ontario, we were there for, I think, like 2 years.
Okay.
But I didn't finish when we came. And they have 3 barracks. There were like kitchens, and we went there to eat. 3 meals a day. They gave us 3 meals a day. Food was abundant. There was so much food that more than what we could eat.
Who was providing the food?
United States government. Okay. They brought us. We were there. We came as guests of President Roosevelt. We were guests. We didn't come as refugees. We came as guests until the end of the war.
Yeah.
And the food was excellent. But they needed cooks, and they needed, because they didn't want to put anybody, So they asked people the refugees, like my mom and my aunt. They were good cooks, and they cooked. And they would pay them $18 a month. They gave them $18 a month for working.
I'm sorry. You said your aunt was with you?
My aunt came also.
Which aunt?
My mother's sister.
And where was she from?
She was originally from Sarajevo. Yeah.
Okay. And she ended up in Lecce with you?
Yeah.
How did
when
that
we
happen?
came, I don't know how she got there. When we came, she escaped like everybody else. Everybody has a different way, they escape differently, She escaped when we came to Italy. She was there. Okay. In other words, that was like a haven, because Americans and British were there. Right. So when they got to Italy, somehow they were saved.
And they found you.
Yeah. But we found them when we came, because they were signed up already to go to the United States.
What was their name?
My aunt's name was Rachel Klimple. Rachel Klimple, yes.
Okay. And did she bring other family members with her?
No.
Okay.
One son, she had two sons. One son was killed by Germans, and one son survived, and he went to, no, he was in Yugoslavia, yes. He was in Belgrade, lived in Belgrade, and died there of natural causes.
In the meantime, after the war ended, did you ever hear from Blanca again?
We didn't hear nothing. We were searching for her like crazy. Yeah. But I'm still in Oswego.
Yes.
You know, I want to tell you how beautiful it was in Oswego. People were so nice. Now, in the papers, it was written that some residents of Oswego were complaining why they're bringing refugees in their town. But we didn't see that. They came all to the fence. You know, the camp was fenced up. They came to the fence with beautiful gifts, with presents. With one lady looked at me. She said, "Let me look at you. Stay there." She went to her car and she brought a big box as big as this coffee table, but this tall, from the floor this tall. And she threw it in for me. She and her husband had to handle that box. And inside that box was gorgeous sweaters, skirts, dresses, gloves, hats, you name it. It was amazing. And then when we started after a month in Oswego, in the camp, they allow us to go to public school. I went to public school. From the first day, the kids were so nice. They didn't know what to do for me. They were friendly. And then when it came Christmas time, I didn't have money. I didn't know from presents or anything. They showered me with presents, gloves and napkins and little things, scarves, you know, and earmuffs, different things like that, and coloring books. And oh my God, I was so taken back. I didn't experience anything like that in my lifetime, you know. So they were very, very nice to me. And I loved every minute of every year and every day that I was there. And I just loved the United States. And then in the camp, after what happened, one day when I was in school, they called us all to go to the assembly. And they told us that sad news, President Roosevelt died. Oh my God, I was so upset. I was crying like my father passed away. I was so upset. And listen, he died, and then President Truman came in, and people started from the camp. They had to go back. And a couple of groups went. They went like 50 people at a time. They started going back. And then all of a sudden, there was an organization, and the leader from the director from the camp, they had a director. And director from the camp, he was a very nice man. He went to the government and he says, why should these people go back when they're here in the United States? And everything is torn there. There's nothing there. And President Truman allowed 3,000 a month to come after the war because he saw that there was such destruction and such hardship. He passed a law that every month they could bring in 3,000 refugees to the United States. So they said, why these people are coming and you're making these other people go back? So President Truman said, no, they shouldn't go back. It's up to them. If they want to stay, they could stay. Of course, everybody wanted to stay. So they arranged very nicely for us everything. They took us to Canada. They had our first papers and all the information, everything that was needed to come legally to the United States. We crossed the bridge and we came legally to the United States. And 5 years later, we got our citizenship and we became American citizens.
And where did you live?
And oh yeah, after the war, they were closing the camp, and everybody had to go someplace. And so when we came back from Canada, my father wanted to go to California. He heard so much about California. He wanted to go to California. But they said to him, no, don't go to California. It's too far, and you might not get a job. Go to Philadelphia. Philadelphia is better for you. So they told us, so my father said, all right. So we came to Philadelphia. And they brought us here on a train, escorted us to Philadelphia. And the Jewish Federation met us, and they told us they found an apartment for us. And they took us to our apartment, which was empty, not a tick of furniture, nothing, empty apartment. It was January. It was cold, no heat, no hot water, nothing. It was on the 3rd floor on 4th and Pine. And, well, they did ask us, do you need any help? My father was such a proud man. To him, to ask for help was like terrible. He said, no, we don't need any help. We're going to get by ourselves. So my father had few $100, nothing much to talk about. So he went on South Street there. There were old furniture stores. And so he bought few old beds, used. And he bought used couple of pots and pans and used silver, everything, few plates, everything from a used store on South Street. And so we got by like that, and right away we looked for a job. But we were living in a cold apartment in January because the electric company would not give us electricity or any, dark too, no light, because we had no credit. We just came, we're refugees, we just came. Who's gonna give us credit? But finally, we got a neighbor and they helped us out. He worked, called up and told them these people are refugees, they just came, and finally we got electricity and we got hot water and heat. And we took any kind of job we could. My mother went to work in Botany 500, clothing, suits. And she never did anything, sewing or anything. She was a business lady. But she was doing the collar. She was a finisher. And my father went to work for Stetson hats. That in those days, we came here 1951, I think. Yeah, 1951. No, we came, what am I saying? 1947. We came here 1947. People were wearing hats. Every man wore a hat. And Stetson was a big company. My father got a job. He was putting hats in a box. What do you call it?
Packing.
Packer, yeah, packing. He was a packer. And my mother did the finisher. She was doing the collar. And I went to school. And after school, I got a job babysitting and Sunday babysitting. And every penny I made, I gave to my parents. We all worked together. And my brother, he did so good in school that they wanted to give him scholarship at Temple University. And he couldn't take it because he had to go daytime. and he only had to go to night school because he had to go to work daytime. So he went to work also for Stetson factory. And so we all made a little bit, except my sister, she was the youngest. So she went to school. She went to second grade or something, you know. She didn't work, but all of us went to work, anything we could do to make a buck. I remember in those days, we paid, I remember the rent was $38 a month. $38 a month on the third floor, and, you know, no elevator or anything. But that's okay. We were young. We could do it at that time. And so we started our life there, and we lived nicely. And I also went to night school. I finished high school because I worked full time. As soon as I became 16, I went to get a full-time job. And I worked at Hastings Gold Leaf. It was making, cutting gold leaf. That was very, very, very sensitive job. But I did it, and I became the best one there. And I went at night school till I finished high school. When I graduated high school, then I got an office job. I wanted to do what I did bookkeeping and things like that, office work, you know, Synagogue and everything. And so I did that. I got a job in an office, and I managed a small office for a company, and I did everything. Accounts receivable, accounts payable. I did making payroll. The company had 45 workers. I made the payroll. I went to the bank. I got the money that was needed. I wrote out a check for all the workers. I did everything myself. Answered the phone. I did everything. It was one girl office, but it was good. In those days, they paid me $40. So that was a lot of money in those days. If my rent was $38, I mean our rent. So my 1 week's pay paid for the rent. But I gave everything home to my parents, except I took like $3 or something, spending money or something. And the rest, we all worked together. We, you know, and then I started dating when I was 17. Was the first date. When I was 17, I had my first date. The neighbor saw me, and he liked me. And he went to my father and asked him, "Can I take your daughter out?" It was a New Year's Eve. And my father said, "Yes, you can." So he took me out. It was my first date.
What was his name?
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He wasn't important to me because I didn't see him again. But I started dating then. But I had few dates. I mean, I went steady for, seems like 3 times I went steady before I got married. Seemed everybody wanted to go steady with me. Those days, steady meant if you go steady, that means you're serious. They like you and they want to marry you someday. And otherwise, you're just dating. That's how it was then. And if a guy would ask you, "I want you to go steady with me," oh, that's a big step. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you got married. Who did you marry?
I got married in 1952 to Morris Meller. Yes.
How did you meet?
Well, we met on a 4 couples. We were 4 couples. We went on a date. We went to a Latin casino that was in New Jersey. And he was with another girl, and I was with another guy. And well, he liked me, and he kept pursuing me. I wasn't paying much attention to him there. I saw him. I was friendly, but after that, he kept calling me every day. So I said to him, look, I'm busy. You have to call me a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance. And kept calling every day. And finally he said, do you like weddings? I said, oh, I love weddings. He said, well, I'm invited to a wedding. Would you like to come? I could bring a guest. I said, oh, yeah. That talked me into that. And yes, I went to the wedding. And on our first date, everybody there, all his friends, they all wanted to dance with me. And after that, he said to me, when we were going home, he said, I would like you to be my steady date. I said, huh? I said, well, what? No, he said, I don't want you to see any other guys, just me. I said, huh? What would you say if I would tell you I don't want you to see any other girls but me? And he said, well, that would be great, he said. So that's how it started, and we went steady on our first date.
And when were you married?
6 months later. And he wanted to get married even sooner.
What's the date of your wedding?
July the 5th, 1952.
Okay. So you were married for how many years?
60.
60 years.
And my husband passed away on our 60th anniversary. He was telling all the nurses, it's our anniversary. And they said, is it really? They asked me. I said, yes, it was. It was our anniversary. He died July the 5th at night, but they made it the 6th because it was like past midnight. It was like 15 minutes past midnight. So it was the 6th. But we're married the 5th, July the 5th. 60, we're married 60 years.
Did you have children?
Yes, I have 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. First I have 2 sons, then my daughter, she's the baby.
Their names?
Kenneth, Stephen, and Susan.
Okay.
And 2 of them are doctors. Stephen is a doctor, and Susan is a doctor.
Okay.
And Kenny is a businessman. He became an accountant, a certified public accountant, but he didn't like it. So he went in business.
And can you remember all your grandchildren's names?
Oh, definitely. I have Jessica, she's the oldest. Then I have Jason, who's here. And then I have, oh my God, Jessica, Jason, and Amy. I got shook up a little. Jessica, Jason, and Amy. Then I have Jake and Brandon. And then I have Alexandra and Carly.
Lovely.
That's it.
Lovely.
7.
Very nice.
7 grandchildren. Thank God for every one of them. And I'm very proud of them. One became a lawyer. Another one is in the medical school, 2nd year of medical school. And another one she's going to a law school, and she got 5 scholarships. And she got one of the most prestigious scholarships, one and only scholarships that they give out. And she got it.
Very good.
In a law school scholarship.
I have to ask you, is there anything that we have not talked about that you still would like to mention?
I don't know. I mean,
Have you
thank God I had a nice life. I raised 3 kids. I helped my husband in business. We had a deli restaurant, and I was going there for 20 years every day after the kids would go to school. And before they would come home, I would be home. My husband would say, Sarah, 2:30 in the afternoon. He would go to the parking lot, bring the car, and say, Sarah, your car is in front of the door. Go home for the kids. And I did that, and I'm very happy. They were very, very wonderful kids. Never gave me 1 minute of problems or trouble. They were wonderful, thank God. And my wonderful grandchildren, I'm very proud of them. And thank God. God gave me longevity and good health, and I'm very thankful to God for every day of my life. I'm very grateful to God and everybody that helped me along the way.
Thank you.
We'll roll. And I'm rolling.
Hi, I'd like to introduce Jason, who is Sarah's grandson, and would like to join us today and to maybe say something to Grandma.
Yeah, I feel incredibly lucky to have her as my grandmother. She's a very strong matriarch for our family. And I really think having something like that is very important growing up. Being in a family with strong women, it helps you not only respect women, but view them in a certain way. And my grandmom is like the penultimate, matriarch. She was an unbelievable wife. Like the love between her and my grandfather was amazing. It was such an example for my family growing up. They loved each other so much. Like obviously I have not seen all of their marriage, but for the 25-ish years that I saw them, my grandmom and grandpa had such a love and were such a great example for my family. And not only that, grandmom always taught us to do what was right. And I think because of all of her experiences, she was always very grateful for her life and always told us to appreciate our lives and what we had and appreciate living in the United States for, the freedoms and the things that it provided. You guys are here now. You see, she lives in a home by herself. She takes care of herself. It's truly unbelievable, what she's still doing at this age. But that's a testament to her will. And I'm sure through all the interviews that have been going on, you've learned about her and what unbelievable will you have to get through the life that she went through. And, I'm so just very grateful that I still have this time with her. A lot of people at my age don't have grandparents, I'm blessed with her and my pop-up as well still around. So it's no coincidence that a fighting spirit helps you live a long time. When you fight and you try, you keep going. That's just built into her. There's times that we said we've joked that grandma is almost a machine because it's unbelievable how she keeps going, and not only keeps going, but she's so sharp and able to take care of herself in a way that so many people can at this age. And I think something that helps her is that she's always driven to care about others. She loves to give back. She was the president of Hadassah for many years. She's still very involved with her synagogue. She's always going to do speaking events. She's always been someone who's been concerned about being healthy, concerned about moving around. And I noticed that of my two grandparents who are alive, they both exercise, they're both active, they're both whatever, so and grandmom is a very young person. She loves going out, she loves interacting, she loves conversing and talking. She's just full of life. And I think that some people, as life goes on, they let life wear them down. We all go through pain in our lives and life wears you down and you slow down, but grandmom, stuff just goes off of her and she keeps moving and she's always smiling and talking and she's always wanting to go out with younger people, interact with them. And just truly blessed to have her as my grandmother.
Jason, when was the first time you knew that your grandma was a Holocaust survivor?
I don't remember the moment. To me, it was always just a part of who she was. It's something that we understood from a very young age.
Okay.
And, growing up, we would get stories here and there. Grandma was pretty open about talking about it if we wanted to. Some people don't enjoy talking about it as much, but Grandma was always happy to answer questions. I've heard the stories, a bunch, but yeah, it was just a big part of our family, because 3 of my grandparents were survivors. So, it was very in the forefront of our family life.
Where were your other grandparents from?
So my mom's father was born in the USSR, just like all of them. But what was, I believe now, Poland. My mom's mother was the only non-Holocaust survivor. She was born in Brazil. And then my grandmother's husband, of course, was born in USSR, but what is now Lithuania.
Yeah.
Vilna.
Vilna.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great. Is there anything else you'd like to add today?
How about all these family functions that we always have? You enjoy. You like
Oh,
all the birthday
absolutely.
and singing
That's a good.
and everything.
That's a good thing to say, Graham. Yeah. Something that I think was very important for us growing up was we were always together as a family. We were a very tight knit family, and I don't know if going through what she went through, she just valued family so much. Like every birthday, everyone was here. Our whole immediate family, and some people have really big families. We didn't have a huge family, but we had a very close family. All of her children, all of her grandchildren, every birthday, Hanukkah, Passover, Yom Kippur, we were all together for all of them. I'm grateful because I think having the support of a family does a lot for a child growing up and feeling that love and support. And having these figures, whether it's parents or grandparents, there to support and play a big role in your life. So definitely I'm very blessed. And, Grandma would make chocolate cake for every one of our birthdays, even till this day. I mean, my diet changed so she doesn't cook for me. But for every other child, for every of the grandchildren, she makes her famous chocolate cake. And, she's famous for her matzo ball soup. Growing up in family events, I only ate two things. I ate spinach kugel and matzo ball soup. I didn't eat brisket. I didn't eat anything else. I would just eat like 4 bowls of matzo ball soup. They used to joke that like they had to stop me from eating the matzo ball soup. But all those traditions, those food traditions she carried, and we still have in our family. And even to this day, as her grandchildren are all grown up, her youngest is just graduated undergrad. I heard her talking over there, and is now going to be going into law school. So it's like full circle because the youngest grandchild is now out of college, and as you grow up, families can spread out a little bit. Kids or grandkids might move a little bit. So we're not as centralized, but the truth is, for events, we all still come together, even if it's not as easy. 95% of us are there, and I know that I'm the only grandchild here, but I can promise you, all the grandchildren are very grateful and feel very blessed for what we've gotten from our grandmom.
Thank you.
Carly, she's in medical school, and she said she was going to take a class off to come. But I said to her, it's too much. Don't do that.
Right.
It's okay. Well, hopefully, I was able to share a little bit about you for everyone.
I'm glad.
Yes.
You are terrific.
I'm glad I'm here.
I love you.
I love you too, Grandmom.
I love you.
Yeah.
And I'm rolling. And who is this?
Oh, this is my family. And we came to Philadelphia. The first week we came to Philadelphia from Oswego, New York. My father in the center, my mom on the right-hand side. No, wait. My brother on top of my father. My brother, that's I on the right-hand side. My little sister, Esther, on the left. My mom on the left. And this is my sister Blanca. I glued in her picture. She wasn't here, but I just cut off another picture and I put it there.
Okay. And I'm rolling.
This is our family. On the right side is my middle son, my daughter, Dr. Susan Meller, my husband, Morris, me, Sarah, and my daughter-in-law, Linda, and my son, Kenneth. And this was a bar mitzvah, a nephew's bar mitzvah.
Okay. I'm rolling.
This is my son's wedding day, my husband and I. My Stephen, it was his wedding day.
Okay. And I'm rolling.
This was a wedding my husband was a little boy here. This was in Poland, Vilna. My husband was a little boy, and on the left here, my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, and the sister. And all the way to the right, this little girl with the bow, that was the older sister. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'm rolling.
That's my family. My husband, Morris, on the right, and Stephen, that was his bar mitzvah. And then I and my son Kenny, and the little girl is my daughter Susan.
And I'm rolling.
Well, this was my grandson's bar mitzvah. And starting from the right, my son Kenny, and next to him is the little girl, his daughter. And then it's Jason next to him. And then it's me and my other grandson, Jake. And over me is Jessica. Next to me is Morris, my husband. And in back of Morris is Susan, my daughter. And that was her husband. And then two children, Brandon and Carly. And at the end, on the left is Stephen. And that's it.
Okay. And I'm rolling.
That's the cover of my book, written by Lisa Marlowe. The name of the book is Sarah's Survival. And inside, it's a whole story, my whole story about my survival. And the picture is when I was 18 years old. I'm 18 years old on that picture.
Okay. And I'm rolling.
This is an event that my brother Isaac, my sister Esther, and I spoke there. And we had a big audience, like 500 people. And this is an advertisement that they were advertising the event.
I'm rolling.
Go ahead.
Sorry, 1 second. Yep. Yes, I'm
I
rolling.
didn't see the picture.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's a get-together of my family where my two sons were ushers to a fair, and we're all there. That's why they're in the tuxedos. My family, me, my daughter, my two sons, and my husband.